The UNAS Pathfinder tumbled out of faster-than-light space like a wounded bird falling from the sky. Alarms screamed through every corridor of the ship. Red emergency lights painted the walls in blood-colored shadows. Captain Dae-Ho Kim gripped his command chair as the vessel shuddered and groaned around him. "Damage report," he called out, his voice steady despite the chaos. "FTL drive is dead, Captain," the engineer reported. "Main power at 40%. Hull breaches on deck 7 and 9. We have injured people everywhere." Dae-Ho looked at the view screen. Unknown stars filled the darkness of space. They had jumped blind, running from the solar flare that destroyed their colonies. 247 people on this ship, all that remained of the Tau Ceti settlement. Men, women, and children who trusted him to keep them alive. "Where are we?" he asked. "Unknown space, sir. No matches in our star charts." "Wait, I am picking up something. Multiple ships heading our way. Big ones." Dae-Ho felt his chest tighten. They had no weapons worth mentioning. Their shields were failing. If these unknown ships were hostile, the Pathfinder would die here, and humanity would lose its last survivors from Tau Ceti. The alien ships arrived within an hour. They were massive, covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. The Pathfinder looked like a toy next to them. A communication signal came through, but it was just noise at first. Strange clicking sounds and electronic pulses. "Try to establish communication," Dae-Ho ordered. "Send them math, physics, anything universal. Show them we are intelligent." It took 3 hours, but they managed to create a basic translation system. The aliens called themselves the Vrixian Hegemony. They were insectoid creatures with hard shells and multiple limbs. Their leader, Imperator Zelvath, appeared on the screen. His translator made his voice sound mechanical and cold. "You are in Vrixian space," Zelvath said. "State your purpose." "We are refugees," Dae-Ho replied. "Our FTL drive malfunctioned. We mean no harm. We only ask for safe passage to continue our journey." There was a long silence. Then Zelvath spoke again, and this time his voice carried something that the translator could not hide. Desperation. "We cannot spare resources for refugees. We are dying, all of us. Every Vrixian in the hegemony is dying." Dae-Ho listened as Zelvath explained. A plague had swept through their empire. They called it the Unraveling. It attacked at the molecular level, breaking down the bonds that held matter together. Vrixian bodies simply fell apart. Billions had already died. Their best scientists could find no cure. The hegemony, which had ruled 12 star systems for thousands of years, would be extinct within months. Dr. Hana Choi was listening from the medical bay. She was humanity's best doctor, the one who had saved hundreds during the Tau Ceti disaster. She activated her comm link to the bridge. "Captain, I need to speak with their medical staff. Send them everything we have about the plague." "Doctor, we barely have enough supplies for our own people," Dae-Ho said quietly. "I know, but we are doctors, Captain. We help. That is what we do." Dae-Ho looked at his crew. They were exhausted, injured, traumatized. They had every reason to think only of themselves. But he saw something in their eyes. The same thing he felt in his heart. They were human, and humans helped. "Send them our medical database," he ordered. Offer Dr. Choi's assistance. The Vrixians were suspicious at first. Why would refugees help a dying empire? What did humans want in return? But Hana Choi asked for nothing. She simply studied the plague and worked with Vrixian scientists to understand it. After 2 weeks, she made a discovery. Human cells had evolved in Earth's unique electromagnetic environment. This gave human biology a resistance to quantum-level disruption. The Unraveling could not touch human tissue the same way it destroyed Vrixian matter. "We can synthesize a cure," Hana told the Vrixian medical team, "but it will take time and resources." The Pathfinder was moved to a Vrixian medical station. For 6 months, Hana worked day and night. She used the ship's limited medical equipment and combined it with Vrixian technology. Captain Dae-Ho gave her anything she needed, even when it meant less for his own crew. The refugees from Tau Ceti donated blood samples, genetic material, anything that might help. Children drew pictures for the sick Vrixians. Engineers shared their food rations. Everyone helped in whatever small way they could. They had nothing, but they gave everything. Finally, the cure was ready. The first test subject was a young Vrixian worker who was days from death. They injected the cure into his system and waited. For 12 hours, nothing happened. Then slowly, his molecular structure stabilized. The unraveling stopped. He would live. Within weeks, billions of Vrixians received the cure. The plague was stopped. The hegemony would survive. The relief and gratitude from the Vrixian people was overwhelming. They offered the humans anything they wanted. Territory, wealth, technology, power. Name it, and it would be theirs. Captain Deho stood before Imperator Zelvath in the Grand Hall of Threx Prime. Trillions of Vrixians watched through their communication networks. Zelvath offered him a star system, a fortune in precious metals, advanced weapons, anything. "We want nothing," Deho said simply. "We helped because it was the right thing to do. All we ask is safe passage and some supplies for our journey. Star charts to help us find a new home." Zelvath was silent for a long moment. Then he did something no Imperator had done in Vrixian history. He lowered himself before the human captain. Every Vrixian in the hall did the same. "You gave us our future when you had nothing," Zelvath said. "Your species has shown honor beyond measure. I make this promise before all our people, recorded in our eternal archives, taught to every Vrixian child that will ever live. Should humanity ever need us across any distance through any danger, the Vrixian hegemony will answer. This is our blood oath. We seal it with our very existence." The ceremony lasted for hours. The Pathfinder was repaired and upgraded. They received star charts, supplies, and gifts. But the most valuable thing they received was invisible, a promise, a debt that would never be forgotten. As the Pathfinder prepared to depart, Deho stood on the bridge one last time, looking at the Vrixian fleet assembled to honor them. Dr. Hana Choi stood beside him. "Do you think they will really remember?" she asked. "I do not know," Deho replied, "but I hope that if humanity ever needs help, someone will remember that we once helped when we had every reason not to." The Pathfinder jumped to FTL and disappeared into the stars. Behind them, the Vrixian hegemony began the work of rebuilding their civilization, and in their eternal archives, they placed the story of Captain Deho Kim and Dr. Hana Choi, the humans who saved them, asking nothing in return. 847 years would pass. Empires would rise and fall. Stars would die and be born, but the Vrixians never forgot. 847 years had passed since the Pathfinder left Vrixian space. Humanity had changed beyond recognition. The refugees who fled Tau Ceti had found a new home. They built colonies, then cities, then entire worlds. Earth had been reclaimed and restored. Humanity now called itself the Terran Federation, and it controlled 31 star systems. The humans had become known throughout the galaxy as fair traders and honest diplomats. They built hospitals on alien worlds. They shared technology freely. They settled disputes between warring species. When other civilizations needed help, humans would arrive with food, medicine, and engineering skills. They asked for little in return except friendship and trade. Admiral Jiwoo Park stood on the bridge of the TFNS Seoul, flagship of the Terran Defense Fleet. She was proud of what humanity had built. 94 billion people living in peace across the stars. They had avoided the mistakes of their past. No wars of conquest. No exploitation. Just steady, peaceful growth. But peace never lasts forever. The warning came from a remote listening post on the edge of Terran space. Massive fleet movements. Unknown ships. Lots of them. The technician who spotted them sent an urgent message to Fleet Command, his hands shaking as he typed. Within hours, the truth became clear. The Crithian Dominion had arrived. They were a reptilian species, large and powerful, with scales like armor and eyes like cold fire. For 2 centuries, they had been expanding their empire through brutal conquest. 47 different species had fallen to their war machine. Their ships were designed for one purpose: destruction. The Crithians believed in a simple philosophy. The strong devour the weak. Mercy was weakness. Kindness was foolishness. They looked at the peaceful humans and saw easy prey. The attack came without warning. No declaration of war, no demands, no negotiations. 500 Crithian warships simply appeared in Terran space and started firing. They hit Earth, Mars, Titan Station, and a dozen colonies simultaneously. It was perfectly coordinated and utterly ruthless. Admiral Jiwoo Park scrambled every ship she had. The Terran Defense Fleet was modern and well-trained, but it was built for peacekeeping, not war. They had 200 ships against 500, and the Crithian vessels were bigger, faster, and much more heavily armed. The first battle lasted 18 hours. The humans fought with desperate courage. They saved as many civilians as they could, evacuating stations and colonies under fire. But the Crithians kept coming, wave after wave, crushing everything in their path. By the end of the first week, humanity had lost 14 colonies. Billions of refugees fled toward Earth, their ships packed with frightened families. Commander Taeyang Shin worked around the clock evacuating Luna Medical Station, loading injured civilians onto transports while Crithian fighters strafed the docks. The Terran Council met in emergency session. President Yuna Song looked at the reports and felt sick. The military advisors were clear. At this rate, the Terran defense fleet would be destroyed within a month. Earth itself would fall soon after. They tried diplomacy. They sent messages to the Crithian fleet, offering to negotiate, to discuss terms, anything to stop the killing. The response came from Warlord Kreshtor, the supreme commander of the Crithian invasion force. It was brief and brutal. Surrender Earth or watch it burn. You have 1 week. The council chamber fell silent. Give up Earth, the birthplace of humanity, or watch billions die? It was an impossible choice. President Song looked at her advisors and saw only despair. Ambassador Hyun-Soo Lee was not at the council meeting. He was in the archives, searching desperately through old records. There had to be something, some forgotten alliance, some old treaty that could help. Humanity had made friends throughout the galaxy. Surely someone would come to their aid. But when he contacted their allies, the responses were all the same. Too far away, too dangerous. The Crithians were too powerful. Sorry, but we cannot help. One by one, humanity's friends made their excuses and fell silent. Hyun-Soo worked through the night, his eyes burning with exhaustion. He kept searching, going back further and further into the historical records. Most of it was routine. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation. Then, buried in a file marked 847 years old, he found something strange. It was a report from a ship called the UNES Pathfinder, Captain Daeho Kim, Dr. Hana Choi, a desperate voyage through unknown space, contact with an alien empire called the Vrixian Hegemony, a plague, a cure, and a promise. Hyun-Soo read the words carefully. A blood oath, sealed in something called the Eternal Archives, a promise that if humanity ever needed help, the Vrixians would answer across any distance, through any danger. He stared at the screen. 847 years. Would the Vrixian hegemony even still exist? Empires fell all the time, and even if they did exist, would they remember a promise made so long ago to people who were long dead? But what choice did they have? Hyun-Soo printed the file and ran to the council chamber. He burst through the doors, breathing hard, and placed the document in front of President Song. "What is this?" she asked. "A chance," Hyun-Soo replied. "Maybe our only chance." The council read the file. The story seemed impossible. Like a legend. A fairy tale. But they checked the records and everything was verified. The Pathfinder had existed. Captain Kim and Dr. Choi were real people. The Vrixian hegemony was documented in their star charts, though no human had contacted them in nearly 9 centuries. "This is insane," one of the council members said. "You want to send a message to an empire we have not spoken to in 800 years, asking them to honor a promise made to people who have been dead for centuries? They will ignore us, or they will not even receive the message." "Maybe," Hyun-Soo admitted. "But what else do we have? Our allies have abandoned us. Our fleet is losing. Earth has 1 week before the Crithians attack. If there's even a small chance that the Vrixians remember, we have to try." President Song was silent for a long moment. She thought about the billions of people depending on her decision. She thought about the children being evacuated from the outer colonies. She thought about Earth burning under Crithian fire. "Send the message," she ordered. "We have nothing left to lose." Hyun-Soo nodded and went to work. He recorded a message addressing it to the Vrixian hegemony, to anyone who might remember. He kept it simple and honest. He told them who humanity was, descendants of the people who had once helped them. He told them about the invasion, about the Crithians, about Earth. And then he asked the question that would decide the fate of humanity. "Do you remember the debt?" The message was encrypted and sent toward Vrixian space at maximum speed. It would take 3 days to reach them. If they were even there. If they even remembered. If they even cared. Admiral Jiwoo Park watched the transmission go out and shook her head. She did not believe in fairy tales, but she had seen her people fight and die for 2 weeks. She had seen colonies burned and civilians slaughtered. If there was even a tiny chance that help was coming, she would hold the line as long as possible. The Crithian fleet tightened its grip around Earth. They were patient. They had already won, and they knew it. All they had to do was wait for humanity's last defenses to crumble. 3 days passed. No response. Admiral Park prepared for the final battle. Earth's orbital defenses were at 40% capacity. The civilian evacuation was nearly complete. They had done everything they could. Now they would make their last stand. On the 4th day, every sensor in the solar system started screaming. Part 3. The message: the sensors should not have been showing what they were showing. The technician on duty thought his equipment was broken. He ran diagnostics 3 times. Everything checked out. The readings were real. Massive quantum signatures, thousands of them, appearing at the edge of the Oort cloud, the furthest reaches of the solar system. Ships were translating into real space from faster-than-light travel. Big ships, lots of them. The technician hit the alarm. Within seconds, every command center in the solar system was watching the same impossible data. More ships kept appearing. The numbers kept climbing. 1,000. 2,000. 5,000. Admiral Jiwoo Park stared at her tactical display in disbelief. Her first thought was that the Krithians had called for reinforcements. But these ships were not coming from Krithian space. They were coming from a completely different direction. From the galactic core. From Vrixian space identification? She demanded, still processing, Admiral. But the ship designs match our historical records. These are Vrixian vessels, 7,000 of them. And they are still coming, 7,000. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. The Krithian invasion force was 500 ships. The entire Terran defense fleet was 200. And the Vrixians had sent 7,000. President Yuna Song rushed to fleet command. Ambassador Hyunsoo Lee was already there, his hands shaking. He had sent the message. He had asked for help. But he had never expected this. Nobody had. The Vrixian fleet moved through the outer system like a tidal wave of metal and power. 3 planet-killer dreadnoughts, each the size of a small moon, 50 carrier battle groups, hundreds of destroyers and cruisers, and every single vessel carried the same symbol on its hull, a human hand clasped with a Vrixian claw. The Krithian forces detected the new arrivals immediately. Warlord Kreshtor stood on his command deck, watching the sensor data with growing confusion. Then alarm. Then fear. Who are they? He demanded. The Vrixian hegemony, my lord. They have sent their entire Grand Armada. Kreshtor felt something he had not felt in decades. Genuine fear. The Vrixian hegemony was a legend, an ancient power that had not fought a war in 6 centuries. They were the sleeping giants of the galaxy. Every military academy taught about them. Their technology, their tactics, their absolute dominance during the Age of Expansion. Why are they here? Kreshtor whispered. The answer came moments later. A message transmitted on all frequencies in every known language. The voice belonged to Fleetmaster Kixall, Supreme Commander of the Vrixian forces. This is Fleetmaster Kixall of the Vrixian hegemony, to the government of the Terran Federation. Children of Daeho Kim and Hana Choi, we have received your message. We have not forgotten. 847 years ago, your ancestors saved our civilization when we were dying. They asked for nothing. They gave us our future. Today we honor the blood oath sealed in our eternal archives. Direct us to your enemies. President Song felt tears running down her face. The message was being broadcast throughout human space. People were watching, crying, cheering. They had sent a desperate plea into the void, hoping for a miracle. And the miracle had arrived. Hyunsoo Lee stepped forward to the communication console. His voice was shaking as he recorded the response. Fleetmaster Kixall, this is Ambassador Hyunsoo Lee of the Terran Federation. We are honored beyond words. We never dared hope that you would remember. The Krithian Dominion has invaded our space. They have killed billions of our people. They have given us 1 week to surrender Earth or watch it burn. We ask for your help. The response was immediate. Ambassador Lee, the blood oath is eternal. Your ancestors gave when they had nothing. They showed honor beyond measure. Every Vrixian child learns their names. Captain Daeho Kim, Dr. Hana Choi, the 247 souls of the Pathfinder. They are heroes to all our people. We do not forget our debts. We do not abandon those under our protection. Send us the coordinates of the Krithian fleet. Admiral Park sent the tactical data immediately. The Vrixian fleet acknowledged and began moving toward Earth. They did not hurry. They moved with calm, perfect coordination. Like predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. The Crithian fleet had positioned itself in orbit around Earth, ready to begin the final bombardment. But now they were trapped. Behind them was Earth and its defenders. In front of them, approaching steadily, was the largest fleet ever assembled in recorded history. Warlord Kreshtor tried to maintain his composure. He opened a channel to the Vryxian fleet, his voice carrying the arrogance that had served him through decades of conquest. Vryxian vessels, you have no business in this conflict. The Crithian Dominion claims this territory by right of conquest. Leave now, and we will forget this intrusion. Fleetmaster Kixall did not respond immediately. He took his time. When he finally spoke, his voice was cold and utterly without mercy. Warlord Kreshtor of the Crithian Dominion, you have raised weapons against those under the protection of the Blood Oath. You have killed the children of those who saved us. You have made the greatest mistake of your civilization. This is your only chance to retreat. Take your forces and leave this system. Do it now. Kreshtor felt his pride warring with his survival instincts. The Crithian Dominion had conquered 47 species. They had never retreated, never surrendered. To run now would be to show weakness, and the strong never showed weakness. The Crithian Dominion does not retreat, he snarled. If you want these humans, you will have to go through us. There was a pause. Then Fleetmaster Kixall spoke one last time. So be it. Grand Armada weapons free. Show them why the Vryxian hegemony is feared across 1,000 worlds. The Vryxian fleet opened fire. What happened next was not a battle. It was an extermination. The Vryxians had spent 600 years at peace, but they had not forgotten how to wage war. Their quantum disruptors phased through Crithian shields as if they were not there. Their gravity weapons reached out across thousands of kilometers and crushed battleships like tin cans. Their tactical coordination was flawless. Admiral Park watched from the Sol, hardly believing what she was seeing. Crithian warships that had terrorized human space for weeks were being swatted aside like insects. The Vryxians moved through them in perfect formations, each ship knowing exactly where to be, exactly when to fire. It was beautiful and terrible. Warlord Kreshtor tried to rally his forces. He ordered them to fight, to show the strength of the Dominion. But his captains were not fools. They could see what was happening. This was not an enemy they could defeat. This was not even an enemy they could damage. The Vryxians were showing them the difference between a civilization that conquered weaker species and a civilization that had mastered war itself. Ships began breaking formation. Some tried to flee. The Vryxians let them go but tagged them with tracking beacons. Others tried to surrender. The Vryxians ignored them and destroyed them anyway. Fleetmaster Kixall had given them one chance to retreat. They had refused. Now there was only justice. 4 hours after the battle began, it was over. 500 Crithian warships had entered the solar system. None remained intact. Some had been destroyed. Others were crippled and drifting. A handful had managed to jump to FTL, fleeing back toward Crithian space with the Vryxian tracking beacons following them. Fleetmaster Kixall sent a message to President Song. The immediate threat has been neutralized, but we are not finished. The Crithians have killed your people. They have burned your worlds. They believed you were weak and alone. We will show them their mistake. We will follow them home. President Song realized what he was saying. The Vryxians had not come just to defend Earth, they had come to make an example. To show the entire galaxy what happened when you threatened those under their protection. Fleetmaster, she said quietly, we are grateful for your help, but we do not ask for vengeance. This is not vengeance, Kixall replied. This is a lesson. The galaxy must understand that the Blood Oath is eternal, that those who harm the descendants of our saviors will face consequences. Your ancestors taught us mercy and honor. We will honor their memory by ensuring that what happened to you never happens again. The Vryxian Grand Armada prepared to jump to FTL. Admiral Park received a message asking if human ships wanted to join the pursuit. She looked at her battered fleet. They had been fighting and dying for weeks. But she thought about the colonies that had been destroyed, the billions who had died, the children who would never go home. Yes, she said, we will join you. The combined fleet of Vryxian and human ships jumped into FTL space, following the tracking beacons on the fleeing Crithian vessels. Admiral Jiwoo Park stood on the bridge of the Sol, still trying to process what had happened. In 4 hours, the Vryxians had destroyed a force that had been crushing humanity for weeks. She received a communication request from Fleetmaster Kixall. His image appeared on her screen. He was tall for a Vrixian, his carapace marked with symbols of rank and honor. His multiple eyes studied her with what seemed like curiosity. "Admiral Park," he said through his translator, "I have studied your defense of Earth. You fought well with inferior numbers and equipment. Your ancestors would be proud. Thank you, Fleet Master. But I must ask, why did you bring your entire fleet? We sent a message hoping for help, but this is extraordinary." Kixall made a sound that the translator interpreted as thoughtful. "Do you know what the blood oath means to our people? When Imperator Zelvath made his promise 847 years ago, it became part of our fundamental law. Every Vrixian child learns the story in school. How humanity saved us when we were dying. How your ancestors asked for nothing in return. The blood oath is not just a promise. It is our identity." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried weight. "We are a civilization of honor, Admiral. When you called, we could not send a token force. That would insult the memory of Captain Kim and Dr. Choi. We sent everything, our entire Grand Armada, every ship we could spare, because anything less would betray who we are." Admiral Park felt tears in her eyes. She had spent weeks watching her people die, feeling helpless and alone. And now she learned that an entire civilization had mobilized because of something her ancestors had done centuries ago. The fleet emerged from FTL near a Krithian forward operating base. The base commanded 3 star systems that the Krithians had taken from a peaceful species called the Telhari. The Telhari had been enslaved, their world stripped of resources, their culture destroyed. Fleet Master Kixall broadcast a message on all frequencies. "This is the Vrixian hegemony to all Krithian forces in this system. You invaded the Terran Federation, killing billions of innocent civilians. You attacked those under our protection. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." The Krithian commander was a veteran named Thexkor. He had served the Dominion for 30 years, crushing weak civilizations and taking what he wanted. He looked at his sensor readings and saw the massive Vrixian fleet. He thought about fighting. Then he thought about surviving. "We surrender," he transmitted. "Do not fire." The Vrixians boarded the base and freed the Telhari slaves. Admiral Park watched as thin, broken aliens stumbled into the light, hardly believing they were free. Dr. Bora Kwan and her medical team immediately began treating the wounded. The Telhari cried and thanked them in broken standard, but the fleet did not stop there. They followed the Krithian supply lines deeper into Dominion space. Every military installation they found was given the same choice: surrender or be destroyed. Most surrendered. Those that fought were eliminated in minutes. At each conquered world, the Vrixians freed the enslaved species. The humans helped. Engineer Min Ji-yoon worked alongside Vrixian technicians to disable slave control systems. Commander Taeyang Shin distributed food and medical supplies. Slowly, humanity began to understand what they were part of. This was not just revenge. It was liberation. News of what was happening spread through the galaxy faster than the fleet could move. The Vrixian hegemony had awakened after 600 years of peace. They had sent their entire military might across 1,200 light years to honor an ancient promise. And they were dismantling the Krithian dominion piece by piece. Other civilizations watched and learned. The message was clear. Humanity was not alone. They were protected by the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and that protection was absolute. 3 weeks after the Battle of Earth, the combined fleet arrived at Krithia Prime, the Dominion homeworld. It was a fortress planet, ringed by defense stations and protected by the last remnants of the Krithian military. 300 ships remained. They formed a defensive sphere around their world. Warlord Kreshtor broadcast from the surface. "You have hunted us to our home. You have destroyed our outposts. But you will not take Krithia Prime. We will fight to the last warrior." Fleet Master Kixall did not respond to Kreshtor. Instead, he sent a message to Admiral Park. "Admiral, this is your decision. The Krithians attacked your people. How do you wish us to proceed?" Admiral Park thought carefully. She thought about the burned colonies, the dead civilians, the children who would never see their parents again. Part of her wanted to order the planet destroyed, to make the Krithians feel the same pain they had inflicted. But she also thought about Captain Dae-ho Kim. He could have asked the Vrixians for anything. Wealth, power, territory. Instead, he had asked for nothing. He had helped because it was right. "We destroy their military installations," she said finally. Everything that lets them wage war. But we do not kill civilians. We give them a choice. Peace or destruction. The Vrixian fleet opened fire on the military targets. Their precision was incredible. Orbital defense stations exploded. Military shipyards were reduced to slag. The Crithian fleet tried to fight back, but it was like throwing stones at a mountain. Within 6 hours, Crithia Prime was defenseless. Commander Sujin Bei, speaking on behalf of humanity, broadcast to the Crithian leadership. Warlord Kreshtor, your military is destroyed. Your empire is broken. You have 2 choices. Release every species you have conquered. Dismantle your weapons of war. Accept oversight from the galactic community, or we will remove you from the galaxy entirely. You have 1 hour to decide. The hour passed in tense silence. The humans and Vrixians waited. Finally, a message came from the surface. Warlord Kreshtor appeared on screen. He looked old and defeated. His scales were dull. His eyes showed resignation. We surrender. Unconditionally. I will order the release of all conquered species. I will dismantle our military. I will accept your terms. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried bitter understanding. We thought the humans were weak, soft, easy prey. We did not know they had saved the Vrixians. We did not know about the blood oath. We did not understand that kindness could be more powerful than strength. Fleetmaster Kixel broadcast one final message to the entire galaxy. This is Fleetmaster Kixel of the Vrixian hegemony. Let it be known throughout all civilized space. The Terran Federation is under our protection. The blood oath is eternal. 847 years ago, humanity saved us from extinction. They asked for nothing. They gave freely out of kindness and honor. He continued, his voice carrying across thousands of star systems. The Crithian Dominion invaded them. The Crithians killed their people. The Crithians learned what happens when you threaten those we have sworn to protect. We crossed 1,200 light years in days. We brought our entire Grand Armada. We destroyed their military. We freed their slaves. We broke their empire. The message was being recorded, broadcast, translated into every language. Every civilization in the galaxy was listening. Let this be a lesson. When you deal with humanity, remember who stands behind them. Remember the blood oath. Remember that the Vrixian hegemony honors its debts across centuries. And understand that those who harm the children of Captain Dae-Ho Kim and Dr. Hana Choi will face the full wrath of our civilization. The broadcast ended. Silence filled the galaxy as civilizations absorbed what they had just witnessed. A sleeping giant had awakened. An ancient debt had been repaid. And the balance of power had shifted forever. On the Sol, Admiral Park received reports from across the galaxy. Civilizations that had been hostile to humanity were suddenly requesting diplomatic channels. Trade agreements were being offered. Non-aggression pacts were being proposed. Everyone had seen what happened when you threatened humanity. She sat down heavily in her command chair. They had won. Earth was safe. The Crithians were defeated, but the victory felt strange. Humanity had not won through superior weapons or tactics. They had won because 847 years ago, a captain and a doctor had chosen to help dying aliens when they had every reason to save themselves. Engineer Minji Yoon approached her with a cup of tea. "What are you thinking, Admiral?" she asked. Admiral Park smiled tiredly. "I am thinking that Captain Kim made the right choice. He could have demanded payment from the Vrixians, could have asked for technology or territory. Instead, he asked for nothing. And because he asked for nothing, we received everything when we needed it most." She looked at the view screen, where the Vrixian fleet maintained its protective formation around Earth. "Maybe that is the real lesson," she said quietly. "The galaxy respects strength, but it remembers kindness." Earth recovered slowly. The scars of the Crithian invasion would take years to heal. 14 colonies had been destroyed. Billions had died, but humanity was rebuilding. The Vrixian Grand Armada remained in Terran space for 3 months, helping with reconstruction, sharing technology, and standing guard while humanity regained its strength. President Unisong stood in the rebuilt Seoul Memorial Gardens, looking at a new monument. It showed 2 figures, Captain Dae-Ho Kim and Imperator Zelvath, clasping hands across the centuries. The inscription was written in both human and Vrixian languages. She read the human version aloud. "When one gives freely without expectation, the universe remembers. When debt is honored across the ages, civilizations tremble. This is the way of honor. Fleet Master Kixall stood beside her. His translator converted his clicking speech into clear standard. The memorial is beautiful, President Song, but I must tell you something. The blood oath has been fulfilled. We came when you called. We destroyed your enemies. The debt is paid. President Song felt a moment of fear. Would the Vrixians leave now? Would humanity be alone again? However, Kixall continued, we do not wish to end our relationship. The blood oath was born from debt, but what we propose now is born from respect. The Vrixian hegemony formally requests a military and economic alliance with the Terran Federation, not because we owe you, but because we want to stand with you as equals. President Song felt tears in her eyes for the second time in months. We would be honored, Fleet Master. Truly honored. The treaty was signed 1 week later. The Terran-Vrixian alliance became official. But the news spread far beyond just two civilizations. Ambassador Hyun-Soo Lee found himself suddenly very busy. His office was flooded with diplomatic requests. Species that had ignored humanity for decades now wanted meetings. The 47 species freed from Krithian rule sent a joint delegation. They stood before the Galactic Council and made an announcement that shocked everyone. We have seen what the Terran Federation and the Vrixian hegemony stand for, their spokesperson said. Not conquest. Not exploitation. Liberation and honor. We petition to join them in a new coalition. We propose the creation of the Free People's Alliance. The proposal was simple. Any civilization could join, regardless of size or military power. Members would contribute according to their strengths. Scientists would share knowledge. Engineers would share technology. Military forces would defend each other. The founding principle was suggested by human scientist Dr. Yoon-ji Yoon. Help freely given is never forgotten. Within a year, the Free People's Alliance had 120 member species. It became the largest voluntary coalition in galactic history. The Terran Federation and Vrixian hegemony led it together, making decisions through consensus rather than force. But not everyone was happy with the new order. The remaining aggressive civilizations watched nervously. They had built their power on conquest and intimidation. Now they saw their potential victims protected by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Admiral Ji-Woo Park received a classified report from military intelligence. Officer Jae-Sung-ro had been monitoring communications across the galaxy. His findings were remarkable. Admiral, we are seeing a massive shift in behavior. Civilizations that were planning invasions have canceled them. Border disputes are being resolved through arbitration. Species that were building war fleets are redirecting resources to infrastructure. Everyone is asking the same question. What if humanity is watching? What if the Vrixians come? Admiral Park smiled. Fear is keeping the peace. Not exactly fear, Admiral, respect. These civilizations saw what happened when the Krithians attacked humanity. They saw 7,000 Vrixian warships cross 1,200 light-years to honor an 800-year-old promise. They are wondering what their own actions might trigger, what debts they might be creating, what promises they should be keeping. Admiral Park understood. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Power was not just about weapons and fleets. Power came from the relationships you built, from the promises you kept, from the help you gave freely. But the most important changes were happening on a smaller scale. On Threx Prime, the Vrixian homeworld, a new memorial was being built. It stood in the capital city, where billions of Vrixians could see it. The statue showed Captain Dae-ho Kim and Dr. Hana Choi standing with Imperator Zelvath, their hands joined. Young Vrixian children came to the memorial on school trips. Their teachers told them the story, how humanity had been refugees, how they had nothing, how they helped anyway, how that single act of kindness saved not just the Vrixian species, but shaped the future of the entire galaxy. On Earth, similar memorials were being built. But they also included something new, statues of Fleet Master Kixall and the Vrixian warriors who had come to humanity's rescue. Because humanity remembered too. They remembered who had answered their call when everyone else stayed silent. Ambassador Hyun-Soo Lee gave a speech at the Galactic Council 6 months after the Krithian surrender. Representatives from 200 civilizations attended. He stood at the podium and told the story that everyone already knew. But he told it in a way that made them think. 847 years ago, a human ship stumbled into Vrixian space. Captain Dae-ho Kim had 247 refugees on his vessel. They were injured, low on supplies, desperate. When they learned that the Vrixians were dying from a plague, they could have left. They could have conserved their resources for themselves. Nobody would have blamed them. He paused, letting the silence fill the chamber. But they stayed. They helped. They gave their medical knowledge freely. They shared their limited supplies. Dr. Hana Choi worked for 6 months to develop a cure. The refugees donated blood and genetic samples. Children drew pictures for dying Vrixian workers. And when it was over, when the cure was distributed and billions were saved, Captain Kim refused payment. He asked for nothing except safe passage and star charts. Ambassador Lee looked around the chamber, making eye contact with as many representatives as he could. That simple act of kindness echoed across 8 centuries. When the Krithian Dominion invaded humanity, thinking we were weak and alone, the Vrixian hegemony mobilized their entire Grand Armada, 7,000 warships, a dozen planet-killer dreadnoughts. They crossed the galaxy to honor a promise made by leaders who died centuries ago to people they had never met. He let that sink in. The Krithian Dominion conquered 47 species over 2 centuries. They fell in 3 weeks. Not because humanity was militarily powerful, but because humanity had earned loyalty, because kindness, freely given, creates bonds that transcend time and distance. Ambassador Lee's voice grew stronger. I am not telling you this story to brag. I am telling you this story as a lesson. The galaxy is watching all of us now. Every civilization here is making choices about how to treat others, about whether to help or exploit, about whether to keep promises or break them. And the galaxy will remember those choices, just as the Vrixians remembered what humanity did for them. The chamber was completely silent. We did not seek this protection. We did not ask for this alliance. But we received it because 800 years ago, our ancestors did what was right without expecting reward. So I ask you all, what are you doing today that the galaxy will remember in 800 years? The speech was broadcast across every civilized world. It became required viewing in schools. Philosophers debated its meaning. Political leaders quoted it. And slowly, carefully, the galaxy began to change. On Earth, in the rebuilt Seoul Memorial Gardens, an old Admiral Ji-woo Park walked with her granddaughter. Cadet Sohee Park was young, eager, and full of questions. Grandfather, she said. She always called her grandmother grandfather, as a term of respect in their family tradition. Do you think Captain Kim knew what would happen? Did he know that helping the Vrixians would save humanity 800 years later? Admiral Park smiled. They stood before the statue of Captain Kim, looking up at his bronze face. I do not think he knew. I do not think he cared about what might happen centuries in the future. He just saw people who needed help, and he had the ability to help them. So he did. But was it not foolish? So he asked. His own people were suffering. He could have used those resources for them. Perhaps, Admiral Park admitted. Perhaps by the calculations of pure survival it was foolish. But humanity has never been a species that follows only logic. We have compassion. We have empathy. We help because it is right, not because it is profitable. She put her hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. That is what makes us human, Sohee. Not our technology, not our weapons, not our territory, but our capacity to help others even when it costs us, even when we gain nothing, even when nobody is watching. But somebody is always watching. Sohee said quietly, looking up at the statue. Yes, Admiral Park agreed. The Vrixians were watching. The galaxy is watching, and more importantly, we are watching ourselves. We have to live with the choices we make. Captain Kim could look at himself in the mirror and know that he had done the right thing. That is worth more than any reward. They stood in silence for a moment, then Sohee asked one more question. What happens now, grandfather? We have allies. We have peace. But what is our role in the galaxy?